right, so we're jumping in our series that we're talking about over the last few weeks and into the next few weeks is who in the world was Jesus? There's no doubt, there's no arguing really that Jesus has had an influence on the last 2,000 years of history. He's had an impact. This question was asked by Jesus to his disciples, like who are people saying that I am, and who do you say that I am? And there were people often that would ask Jesus, like, who do you think you are? And then Jesus would tell them. And I think this question has been debated over the last 2,000 years, and we're still talking about it. Who actually in the world was Jesus? And there are lots and lots of thoughts around that. And we've been saying this, that the reason we want to ask that question is the better we understand who Jesus was in the world, the more clearly we will see who we are to be in the world. Because whether people believe everything about Jesus that's maybe found in the Bible or that some church says, one of the things that most people believe about Jesus is that he was a good person who had a positive impact on the world at a point in time in history that is still carried on. That's hardly irrefutable. And while I believe in what Jesus did in his life as this big redemptive plan, that there's so much more to his life for us to look at, to learn from, and to emulate. Now, John, friend and follower of Jesus, maybe you've heard of the Gospel of John, right? That this was his account of who Jesus was. He records some claims that Jesus made about who he was in the world. He records that Jesus claimed to be these things, and Jesus gives several metaphors. That's what we've been talking about in this series. But the most outrageous claims of Jesus were his claims that he was God, that he was in fact divine. Pastor in Canada who wrote this book, The End of Religion, great read, he says this: we cannot avoid the fact that Jesus believed he was the instrument through whom God would bring about major changes in the spiritual landscape of planet Earth. We can't ignore that fact. You can't avoid it. Jesus made claims. So the idea is if you think he's just a good man or he's just a good teacher, you have to actually look at what he said. And C.S. Lewis came up with this framework we've been looking at here, is that when it comes down to the claims of Jesus, right, not just his teachings, but the claims of who he was about himself, you're going to believe one of these four things is that he was a liar. And if he's a liar, you shouldn't follow him, right, because he can't be trusted. And some people are like, well, then another option is that he was a lunatic. He was a crazy person. He was delusional, which you shouldn't follow someone like that, right? Because it could be dangerous. Or that it was just legend. It's pure myth. It's just a good story to teach us some things. And so then you can follow Jesus, but really only up to a point, because what if that story has been fabricated over time versus what if that story is true? And we said, or when Jesus makes the claims, when he said, I am this and that, and it was these claims of divinity, you can believe that he is Lord. You can trust that he is exactly who he said he is. And if that is true, then not only should we follow Jesus, we can trust him. It is good to follow Jesus. So from that framework, I want to look at the next I am statement of Jesus, this next claim of divinity, this next outrageous claim that Jesus made about himself in the world. Can we turn it down just a little, my mic down just a touch? In John chapter 8, it says, Jesus spoke to the people once more and said, I am the light of the world. If you follow me, you won't have to walk in darkness, because you will have the light that leads to life. Big claim, right? I am the light of the world. So, and then just the next chapter over, we find Jesus and his disciples. He's actually going to repeat this for people. So if you're reading in the Bible and you find things that are repeated, they're probably very important. So Jesus, in the very next chapter, John records this. It says, as Jesus was walking along, he saw a man who had been blind from birth. Rabbi, or teacher, his disciples asked him, Why was this man born blind? Was it because of his own sins or his parents' sins? And this was the very Jewish way of thinking about kind of a disability like this, right? Was this something that happened because of a poor decision he made that caused him to go blind? Or was this his parents did something wrong, and then this was like kind of taken out on him, almost like a very karmic mentality, right? Like his parents did something wrong, and so he was born blind to punish them. And Jesus said it was not because of his sins or his parents' sins. This happened so the power of God could be seen in him. We must quickly carry out the task assigned to us by the one who sent us. The night is coming, and then no one can work. But while I am here in the world, I am the light of the world. And this is kind of what we can gather from this phrase and kind of what I want to unpack here, this I am the light of the world mindset. What Jesus is saying here is Jesus claims to be the revelation of spiritual truth. The revelation of spiritual truth. You see, light isn't what is seen so much as it causes us to see, right? Light reveals reality. And like the better picture we have of reality, the better picture of truth that we have, the better we can see. Have you ever talked to someone that just didn't seem to live in like the reality of the world around them? If you haven't, you might be that person. No, I'm just kidding. We all are that person at some level, right? Like we have blind spots, things that we don't see in our own lives and in the world around us. And light begins to reveal reality. And what Jesus is saying is, I am the revelation of reality, spiritual truth, the thing that is going on underneath everything. That truth is found in me. I'm lighting up the world. I'm lighting up the room so you can see. And seeing is good. Light is good. Most of us understand that the things that we're trying to do in this world, we want light. You have lights installed in your home. You have lights installed in and outside of your car. We have lights installed in the rooms. Restaurants where they're completely pitch black and dark don't normally do well for very long. Right? Light is important to us. It gives us these things, these comforts, right? It gives us, why? Because we can see what's in front of us, the reality of things. It doesn't even necessarily change the reality. What it does is allow us to see it. And Jesus said when it comes to the thing under the thing in the world that we all need to see, I am lighting it up, the truth that we all need. And light is good. So what is light good for? Well, first off, it's good for guidance. It's good for guidance. If you want to know where to go next in life, it's good to have the kind of light that leads to life. Have you ever just not been sure what next? Have you ever not been sure about what to do? We all have. We've all been, the path is dark ahead of us. We just don't know. There's a thing with a friend and we want to help them, but we just don't know where to go. Sure, we've all been in darkness at some level. And again, this is spiritually, maybe it's emotionally or socially. And Jesus says, I am the light. I am the guidance. I am the lantern in front of you so you can see where you're going. Have you ever been in real darkness, so dark that you didn't want to move? We did the El Dorado gold mine tour. If you just go out towards like Boulder City, maybe just past Boulder City, I can never remember exactly where it is. It's in the middle of nowhere. There's a gold mine out there. It's a very interesting place. And they took us into this mine. They took us like into it and then into it. And then they blew out the candle and turned out the lights. And you're just, I remember my first reaction was like grab the wall, right? Why? Because I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what's in front of me. I couldn't get out if I tried. We all have those moments in our life, and I would say at a deep level that without God in our lives, that's where we are spiritually. We are trapped in this darkness, and we're not sure where to go. And Jesus says that the truth, you want revealed truth, reality, It's in me. Light is good. It's good for guidance, but also it's good for growth. We all remember the talk on photosynthesis in high school, biology, right? We remember that light is important for growth. And it's the same that is true for us. We need to be growing and having the light shined into the darker areas of our life to help us become the people that we're supposed to be, to transform into who we are meant to be. Have you ever had someone do that for you? You're like, man, that person was a godsend. They spoke something into my life that was hard. They exposed a dark area, a blind spot of my life. They shined the light on it, and now I can see it where I couldn't see it before, and it helped change my life. Now, that moment hurts, right? That moment's tough. Growth always hurts. Transformation is always a process of the stretching, becoming who we're meant to be. Being who we are and then being stretched into this something new. There's always that tension around it, but light is good for growth. The more we can have things exposed in our life. And I think one of the things that Jesus exposes in our life is the spiritual darkness in places where we maybe disbelieve, things where we haven't trusted. And the more we learn about Jesus, the more we study and practice the ways of Jesus, he's saying, I will light up those areas of your life so you can grow. Some of you have only been following Jesus for a short time, but you can mark the areas that you've grown as a person, as a human being in. And it's a good thing. Light is good for growth. Also, light is good for good. Light is good for good. Whenever someone kind of wants to contrast light and dark, or good and bad, they contrast it with light and dark. Where are my Star Wars fans, right? Light is good for good. Light is associated with doing what is good and what is right. Think about this. This is the only I am statement that Jesus makes, where he says in one place, like, I am the light of the world, but he also says this. Look at when Matthew, one of the followers of Jesus, he writes this, you are the light of the world. Isn't this interesting? Jesus is the light of the world, but then he turns around and he says, you are the light of the world. And this comes from his most famous sermon, the Sermon on the Mount. He says, like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden, no one lights a lamp and then puts it under a basket. Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand where it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, look at this, let your good deeds shine out for all to see, so that everyone will praise your Heavenly Father. Our light is our love. It's our good deeds, and it's never about us. Again, the light lights the room. The light is to reveal reality. And he says, let your good deeds shine out. You're a light. You are. Don't hide it. Let it shine out. How do we shine that light? By our good deeds, our love for each other. This is, we have a value here that we want to create in this community, and it's this worship wholeheartedly, and this is exactly what it is that we're daily reflecting the light of God to the world. It's not about us, it's about everyone else. It's about reflecting the goodness of God and the love of God to the world, the character and nature of this God that we follow. John, in his letters to the church, as an older man, he writes this to the church. He says, dear friends, I am not writing a new commandment for you. Rather, it is an old one you have heard from the very beginning. And this is talking about the very beginning of your faith. This is when we started talking about Jesus. This old commandment, to love one another, is the same message you heard before. Yet it is also new, right? This is different. This idea of true sacrificial love is different. Jesus lived the truth of this commandment, and you also are living it. For the darkness is disappearing, and the true light is already shining. In another place, John says this, like the light of the world's come into the world, and the darkness cannot overcome it. Light always wins. He says, you're living it. You have Jesus as the example. You have Jesus as the way, the path, the truth, right? And you're living it now. And what is that light? It is love. Being light is not connected to spiritual experience or theological, like biblical knowledge. No, it's connected to love. Truth is connected to love. Pastor and author Andy Stanley, talking about this passage of John's writing here in his new book, Irresistible, highly recommend this read if you want to grow in some knowledge of the Bible. He says, according to John, who got it straight from Jesus, if we love well, all is well, period. That's it. Love well, and you're in the light. Or to quote Paul, another a leader of the church and a writer of the New Testament, he says, the only thing that counts is faith expressing itself through love. Believers, the followers of Jesus, the people who are trusting that Jesus is exactly who he says he is, that he is the leader and Lord of their life. Believers maintain fellowship. Another good word for that is partnership. They remain in communion with. They remain in unity and oneness with God by loving those God loves. That's it. John is simply explaining what it looks like to apply Jesus' all-encompassing, new, and very horizontal command. To love our neighbor. We call it this, love loudly. Love loudly. This is another core value here that we want to instill in our lives individually, but also as a community of faith, is noticeably doing good for our community, our families, and our church. We want people to know we're here and that they are loved by us. So we do things like Laundry Project. Maybe you've done the Laundry Project with us. I had a guy who's not a follower of Jesus. He's actually never been in like one of our discussion spaces, but he saw we were doing a Laundry Project and he volunteered to serve and to love people in the community because he's a downtown guy. And we got done and he said, you know, the thing I love most about this was it wasn't giving to some faraway thing. It wasn't like serving and then hoping that it trickled down to the people that needed it. He said, I'm standing face to face with the families that I'm helping. And I'm talking to them, and I'm hearing their names, and I'm hearing their stories, and I'm hearing about their life, and I'm holding their kids. I thought, yeah, that's what it means to love loudly. You're right there in front of the people that you're loving and you're serving. Noticeably doing good. Why? Because Jesus says, I'm the light of the world, and he came and he loved the world by sacrificially, humbly dying for the world, showing us this alternate path of being human. And if we follow that path in that way, if we trust Jesus as leader and Lord of our life, what we begin to do, if we want to say we're in the light, is we love. Don't complicate it more than that. It's simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. If you want to say you're in the light, love. Why? Because Jesus claimed to be the revelation of spiritual truth. And the greatest spiritual truth we can learn is love. It's the very nature of God revealed in Jesus. Now, some of you are in here, and we always have people in here who maybe they don't follow Jesus. It's not yet a thing that they do. You're here because someone invited you. You're here because you want to check this space out, and you want to have these discussions, and we understand that. And I do believe that you can love without following Jesus. But I think that there's a deeper spiritual truth and path and way to love that is revealed in Jesus when you have the people of Jesus doing it together. It's one of the things I love about what is called the church, is it's a group of people who love together. And it exponentially grows the love and the impact that you have on the world. Jesus made a claim. Now, you may think he's a liar, a crazy person. It's just myth. He never really said that. He never really claimed that. Or you trust that he is the Lord and leader of your life. You trust that the switch that turns on the light of God in the world is love, just like Jesus said. I'm gonna ask the musicians to come up, and they're going to sing a song. And it's going to be a song about this. The reason we're reflecting, Matthew said this, you're the light of the world, you good deeds. Why? So that people will look to God and say, these people love like God. And maybe today you don't feel loved. Maybe today you came in here and you feel heavy, alone, and isolated. And love is the last thing that you are thinking about, that you feel like you could even be to someone else, because certainly you haven't felt it in yourself. I want you to know this. You are loved here in this space today. You are loved not just by God as a father, but you are loved by the people, the brothers and sisters that sit here next to you. And we invite you to the table to love with us. And our hope today is that you will feel love. I'm going to pray, and they're going to sing a song about the love of God.